in Africa, as well as COVID-19 vaccine distribution, are top of the agenda at the 6th African Union-European Union Summit, which is underway in Brussels. That's in Belgium. The summit was supposed to take place in 2020, 3 years after the previous summit in Abidjan. But the COVID-19 lockdowns globally made that impossible. For more on this, we're joined tonight by Adv Sipho Mantula, who is a researcher at the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs. Advocate, a very good evening to you. Always great to have you on News at Prime. Realistically, how much can the summit achieve?
Evening and Jumbo Africa to the viewers. If we look at the achievements of this summit, as you have laid down, that there was challenge of COVID-19, but if we look back from Ivory Coast until the meeting of ministers in Rwanda last year, the issue of the joint vision of EU and AU is around dealing with the issues around the SD rights. For me, what was a major highlight is the special drawing rights. How do you give money back to Africa to deal with its challenges of health, to deal with its challenges of education, and as well as we are aware, democracy project. How do we invest on the democratization project when we see military coups going on in the Sahel, and knowingly EU has got an interest in the Sahel region. But if you look at this summit, our role, we still insist on this issue of the vaccine intellectual property rights. Let us share them, let us be free, because we are dealing with a global pandemic. But if one looks at the summit, one will definitely say that the African leadership in this meeting was very focused and was very firm. It's only that we need to see what will be the bearing fruits when they come back from Brussels.
And African leaders will, on the second day today, be very pleased with what they've been able to achieve, at least on the COVID-19 vaccine score, because now we've got in the last few hours the announcement of mRNA vaccine technology that's going to be given to the likes of South Africa and 5 other countries on the continent.
Correctly, and remember that Rwanda has been leading that as well, and Senegal, South Africa as well. But for me, Temegile, it's not all about getting that vaccine decoding or the rights. The issue is that how do we deal with these epidemics and even pandemics affecting the African continent, when we know very well that beyond the health situation that we've been going through, the main issue is that is the European Union in their joint vision, as they were saying, are they really certain that they will assist Africa not only now, but at the same time, the questions around reparation of Africa, because hence I raised the issue of SD rights, that President Ramaphosa, I heard him talking about it, but I think it's a matter of looking why Africa is still indebted to the West. Even this meeting of the EU, one will understand that they had to cover even the global conditions, environment, what is happening currently in the world, whether it's a threat to peace, is a threat to issues of health. But it is important that Africa in this meeting, it is not all about the win-win, but it's how do we hold European countries accountable for the mess that Africa has been going through.
So how does the AU, how do African countries hold the EU responsible for its part in some of the problems on the continent, when we know that for many of these summits in the past, and whenever there is interaction between the West and Africa, it's not necessarily an equal interaction?
Correctly, it is not, and hence, if you looked there in some of the sideline meetings, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia engaged with some of the European powers. But if you look at the role of the African Union, it should be an equal partner when it goes with the EU. Remember, Tembegile, that the formation of the EU actually was the brainchild of the Organization of African Unity in the early 60s. So for us to be now led by the EU as if we are the infants of Europe, it is important that for the AU, they need to have a clear plan of how do we dealing with Europe, like the issue that you are facing now, that you are raising of vaccine production and even innovation around it. It's the same like the PPEs, the sanitizers that we're buying from Europe, when actually we could be even looking at our African methodologies of healing and dealing with these global epidemics and even pandemics. But holding Europe accountable, in a legal sense, is that we have left them off the hook. Hence, we can't even take them to the International Court of Justice. It's only us who we find ourselves taking each other to this court.
There were protests yesterday in Brussels over the situation in Tigray, where the Ethiopian military is fighting with the TPLF. Just this week, a report released by one of the agencies talking about rights abuses by the TPLF. There have been similar reports about the government itself, led by Abiy Ahmed. There was also, in the last 24 hours, an announcement by French President Emmanuel Macron that his country's forces are going to pull out of Mali because they're simply not on the same page with the military junta that took over in a coup last year. It is not the only coup in West Africa in the last 18 months. When it comes to security and stability, what should the role of the EU be, especially in Africa?
You know, Temekile, a very pertinent question that you are raising, even after you have laid what happened yesterday, that DRC nationals, Ethiopian nationals, Comoros, they were there to raise the issues around political situation in their countries because they took advantage of their leaders being in Brussels. But the issue that you are raising, that then what should be the methodology or the approach or the military strategy of EU in Africa? The issue is that they should not mix the military intervention with business, if I can say that. Because France has been in the Sahel for many years. Even Operation Barkhane, Operation Takuba, that they are moving out, it is because that they see that there are new actors now, which is Russia, by the way. And now France has been threatened by Russia by going into the Sahel, when actually what European countries must do, if they are indeed wanting to support the democracy project in Africa, it should not be in conditions. And look at all these military juntas, which I have raised it with you before. Most of them, they are trained by France. And they're the ones who are even brewing these military coups, what the others, they term them revolutionary coups. But if you look, there are sometimes orchestrated coups that comes out of anger from hegemony that France has been doing in the Sahel. So if one looks at what then should be the role of France, France must take lead, and the EU countries must take lead from the African Union Peace and Security Council military intervention processes, because that's where we have been getting it wrong.
And Advocate Mantula, what is the incentive then for, and I want to phrase this question properly, what is the incentive for the EU to have a stable African region, an African continent? Is it more to do with their wish to invest more in our natural resources, or simply to try and keep happy domestic voters who've become increasingly unhappy with the flow of migrants, for example?
Very important again. I think for the EU to be still in Africa is that, I can tell you, France foreign policy without Africa, there is no France. So what I'm trying to say is the former colonial masters still have appetite on Africa. We have abundance of natural resources in Africa, so they will never run away from us. They will always come under a pretext of investment, loans, aid, but no reparation. Sankara warns us about the foreign aid at some point. But look at what's happening in Ouagadougou. Look what is happening currently in the Guinea-Bissau. Look at the attempt coup that nearly happened in Guinea-Bissau and Guinea-Conakry that has happened. But what they are really after is not only to keep our citizens under this democracy yoke, but is to still keep our leaders indebted to the West. Because if you look at the EU policy on the Sahel, it's strictly on what they have raised to ECOWAS to say put sanctions on these military juntas. But that does not assist development and fighting poverty in the Sahel. It actually exacerbates, it increases the level of hunger in the ordinary people. But the leaders are whining and dining in Brussels during these 2 days.
You're right, Advocate. As those French forces pull out of Mali, they will remain or maintain a presence in the broader Sahel region. For now, thank you very much for your time. Advocate Sipho Mantula, a researcher with the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs.